The mob vote. We all know them, and we are all pretty glad that they're over. Whether you like the mob vote or not, most players would agree there was something fundamentally flawed about the entire premise. The community was presented with a handful of mobs and asked to vote for the one they wanted to be added to the game. The mob with the most votes would win and eventually be implemented. And while on the surface, this seems like a great way to give people what they wanted, it ultimately became a showcase of what we lost instead. For every winner, there were two unique and creative mobs left behind, never to be seen again. You'd think that the best mob would always come on top, but you'd be mistaken. Yep, I'm looking at you, Phantom, Glow Squid, and Armadillo. The first mob vote took place all the way back in 2017, and after a short pause, it returned in 2020 and happened every year until 2023, at which point it was finally discontinued for good. It was always frustrating to watch genuinely interesting mob ideas get discarded after each vote, especially if you were rooting for one that didn't make it. While Mojang has promised that the losing mobs might return in some form one day, a lot of the community still wishes they'd just be added outright, especially now that we've seen proof that it's possible. The Copper Golem. Originally a losing mob from the 2021 vote, beaten out by the ally, the Copper Golem was recently added to the game after all, repurposed with a brand new role as a chest sorter companion. This small update brought big hope, with players now wondering whether this could be the beginning of a new trend. Will more mob vote losers finally get their time to shine? Well, I certainly hope so. So today I'm going to go through each one of the mobs that lost the mob vote from the very first vote in 2017 to the most recent in 2023, and give them a reinvented purpose. Not just what they were originally meant to do, but what they could do. I'll only be covering mobs from the mob votes and not the biome votes, and I'll go in order from oldest to newest. Let's give these forgettable mobs a second chance, and maybe even a future in the game, starting off with Mob A from the 2017 mob vote, the Barnacle. Also known as the monster of the ocean depths, the Barnacle was one of the most mysterious entries in the very first mob vote back in 2017. It was originally designed to make oceans scarier, latching onto players with its long tongue and dragging them down to the ocean floor, where they would eventually drown. But beyond that terrifying concept, we never got much else, so I decided to take that idea and make it even more terrifying. Now, the Barnacle doesn't just grab players, it can also latch onto boats. If a Barnacle spots you sailing, it'll fire its tongue at your boat, hooking onto it and slowly dragging you toward the depths, immobilizing your movement. Eventually, it can pull the boat underwater, forcing you to jump out and confront it directly. The moment you hit it, it shifts its target and goes straight for you. To make matters worse, it excretes dark ink into the water, clouding your vision and making it even harder to navigate the fight. If you manage to injure it, the Barnacle detaches and flees, all while releasing more ink behind it as a smokescreen. But it doesn't only attach itself to players or boats. The Barnacle can also latch onto sea creatures, acting like a parasitic leech, most commonly targeting the drowned and guardians. When attached, it takes control of its host, making them faster, more aggressive, and far more unpredictable. With the added effect of ink bombs that blur your vision, these encounters quickly become chaotic. And just when you think you've beat it, the Barnacle detaches from its host once either of their health drops too low, forcing you into a second phase of the fight. If you manage to kill it, you're rewarded with ink sacs and its sharp teeth, which can be used to repair or craft tridents. Following the Barnacle is the Great Hunger. The only meaningful information we got about it was that it could open its massive mouth to consume items or even mobs, and that it has some connection to enchantments, possibly removing or adding them. But that vague idea was more or less absorbed into the grindstone, which already removes enchantments. So I decided to give this little guy a much more unique and exciting role. Now the Great Hunger becomes a living recycling machine, lurking deep underground. If you toss it an enchanted item, it devours it and spits out your item with half its original durability, alongside with a downgraded enchanted book. For example, if you feed it a Protection 4 diamond chestplate, it returns the chestplate at 50% durability and a Protection 2 book. But that's not all. The Great Hunger has the unique ability to remove curses, including Curse of Vanishing and even Curse of Binding, something no other feature in Minecraft currently allows. And it doesn't just feed on enchantments. If you drop it a craftable item, it breaks it down, spitting out a random selection of half its crafting ingredients. Toss in an enchanting table and you might get 2 obsidian and a diamond back, but never the full recipe. It's unpredictable but incredibly useful when you're trying to salvage rare resources you no longer need. The Great Hunger is also very elusive. After being fed a few times, it burrows into the ground and disappears, meaning you'll have to track it down each time you want to use it again. It also refuses to consume items without crafting recipes, spitting them out untouched. With these features, the Great Hunger becomes a strange but valuable underground encounter, turning trash into treasure and giving players a completely new way to salvage and recover what would otherwise go to waste. The final losing mob from the 2017 mob vote is the Wildfire, previously known as the Hovering Inferno. Originally pitched as a stronger version of the Blaze, surrounded by 4 rotating shields and capable of unleashing a devastating shockwave attack, the Wildfire never made it into the game, but I believe it had way more potential than just being a tougher Blaze. In fact, it could have been a true boss similar to the Elder Guardian, especially since the Nether still lacks a native boss encounter, so I decided to bring it back and turn it into a challenge worthy of the Nether. The Wildfire now spawns in a sealed off chamber deep within Nether fortresses. When encountered, it's protected by 4 rotating flaming shields, each of which must be destroyed before you can deal damage to the Wildfire itself. These shields are durable, require multiple hits to break, and rotate quickly. Once its health drops below 50%, the Wildfire will retreat into lava and begin regenerating, not only healing itself but also rebuilding any destroyed shields. This forces the player to act fast or risk having to break its shields all over again, but it doesn't end there. When its health falls below 30%, the Wildfire enters phase 2. Its body erupts in soulfire, turning blue and significantly more dangerous. In this state, it fires soulfire projectiles and moves faster, and its shields now reflect attacks with a burning knockback effect, making close-range combat far riskier. Defeating the Wildfire is no small feat, but the rewards are worth it. It drops a rare item called the Heart of the Nether, which can be used to craft the Wildfire shield, a special shield that sets the attacker on fire when you successfully block their hits. Even better, when the player's health drops below 30%, the shield transforms into a Soulfire shield, igniting attackers with Soulfire and knocking them back with a burst of force. You can also use the Heart of the Nether to craft a Soulfire Trident, a modified version of the regular Trident. It retains the standard Trident's mechanics but deals Soulfire damage. Crafting it requires a Heart of the Nether, Barnacle Teeth, and a Blaze Rod, giving both the Barnacle and Wildfire loot real synergy. The Wildfire also has a small chance to drop a unique armor trim, giving the helmet a gemstone-like core perfect for showing off your victory. With multi-phase mechanics, regenerating shields, and game-changing drops, the Wildfire becomes one of Minecraft's most intense and rewarding boss encounters, finally giving the Nether a worthy boss of its own. Following up the Wildfire, we have the first mob vote loser from the 2020 mob vote, the Iceologer. Originally intended as a hostile illager that spawns in snowy biomes, the Iceologer summons a frozen cloud above the player that crashes down, freezing and damaging them. Now, even in its original form, the Iceologer would have been a solid addition to the game, but there is definitely room to build on its potential. For starters, I'd have the Iceologer spawn near igloos and appear during later raid waves in snowy biomes, adding some biome-specific variety to illager attacks. But to really elevate it, I gave it a couple of new abilities. In addition to summoning clouds, the Iceologer can now hurl ice blocks that trap you in a frozen cage, forcing you to break your way out. And since it's often depicted wearing a cape, I turned that into a mechanic too, allowing it to transform into an ice bath mid-fight. While in this form, it flies around and freezes you, only reverting back once you manage to land a hit. Upon death, the Iceologer drops compacted ice, an item so cold it can freeze water into ice regardless of the biome, and if left alone, the ice slowly upgrades itself into packed ice and even blue ice over time. It can also cool lava into obsidian gradually, making it quite the useful item. All in all, the Iceologer would bring some much needed chill to Minecraft's colder regions and definitely deserves another shot at joining the game. The final 2020 mob vote loser is the Moobloom. Originally envisioned as a peaceful cow covered in flowers that was meant to complement the bee, the Moobloom sadly never made it into the game. But instead of just adding a yellow cow with a few dandelions sticking out of its back, let's push the idea much further. In this version, Mooblooms come in different flower variants, one for every flower type in the game. You'd be able to find them, although rarely, in the biomes where their respective flowers naturally generate. You could shear them to obtain their flower, which would regrow over time, just like how sheep regrow wool. Even better, milking them with a bowl gives you a suspicious stew tied to their flower, each with its corresponding potion effect. And to stay true to its original purpose, Mooblooms would have a unique relationship with bees. Bees would prioritize pollinating flowers on Mooblooms over other flowers, dramatically increasing honey production in nearby hives. You can also crossbreed Mooblooms to create offspring that will inhabit a different flower type, essentially being a mix of both its parent mobs. Next up is the Galere. The first mob vote loser from 2021. Originally, the glare was meant to spawn in caves and fly toward dark areas, grumbling to let you know mobs could spawn there. But let's be honest, that's not very useful when you can just press F3 and check the light level yourself. It's surely cute, but would ultimately be useless. So instead, let's completely reimagine the glare. Now, it's a rare friendly mob found in lush caves, and it loves glowberries. So much so that it actually grows them on its body. You can shear the glare to harvest its glowberries, but its main function would be to provide light. If it has a glowberry grown on it, the glare acts like a flying lantern, glowing softly and lighting up the area around it wherever it floats. Feed it a glowberry and it will start following you around temporarily. But that's not all. The glare now has emotional states, represented by its eyes. If no hostile mobs are nearby, within 20 blocks, the glare is calm. If one gets closer, it gets restless, then agitated at 15 blocks, angry at 10 blocks, and furious if a hostile mob is within 5 blocks. It also makes sounds that reflect its mood, growls when things get worse, and chirps when it feels safer again. On top of that, the glare will detect where mobs are. It will physically stare toward the nearest hostile mob, even if it's through walls, above you or deep underground. But this helpful little creature comes with downsides too. It's weak and easily killed. It cannot be tamed or bred. It's still a wild animal. It doesn't tell you what mob is nearby or how many, and it's hungry. If you don't feed it regularly, it will slowly wilt, lose its glow, and eventually wander off unless you keep feeding it glowberries. Even with its drawbacks, the glare would be a brilliant companion for cave exploration, lighting your path, alerting you to danger, and even providing a bit of food if you're desperate enough to shear it. But more than that, it would be one of the most expressive mobs in Minecraft, the first to truly show emotion and actively move its pupils around. Next up is the Rascal. Originally, the Rascal was a quirky mob that lived deep underground, offering players a small prize if they could find it 3 times in a row, usually something like an enchanted iron pickaxe. While the concept was fun, the actual implementation would have ended up making it less exciting after the first time finding it. So I reimagined the Rascal as a more dynamic underground trader, turning abandoned mineshafts and caves into a sort of hide-and-seek playground with a possibility of getting decent loot. The Rascal now interacts with its environment. It can hide behind walls, in chests, in spawners, and even under rails. When you spot it, it laughs and runs off, leaving behind subtle clues like floating particles, flickering torches, or dropped cobblestone trails. The core mechanic remains: find the Rascal 3 times in a row without losing its trail, and you'll earn a reward, which comes in the form of a bundle with loot. But now, the loot scales with both your speed of finding it and also your progress into the game. It checks your advancements to understand what stage of the game you're in to give you rewards accordingly, so it doesn't end up becoming a useless feature after a certain time frame. And here's where things get more interesting. After rewarding you, the Rascal sticks around briefly and offers cave-specific trades. You can hand it junk like rotten flesh, gravel, or raw iron, and they will offer slightly better deals in return. But this generosity is short-lived. After a short while, it will completely disappear. The Rascal would definitely add a fun mechanic to your otherwise bland trip to the caves and incentivize players to track it down. Following up with the next 2022 mob vote loser, the Tuff Golem. Now, the Tuff Golem was originally supposed to be a sort of walking item frame that could display items, which without a doubt is quite underwhelming, and probably the exact reason it ended up in last place. But don't worry, I've made it exponentially more exciting. You can now summon the Tuff Golem by combining a tough block, any color wool, and a carved pumpkin. The location you spawn it in is important, because that spot becomes its anchor point, which it will always return to. Even the direction you place the pumpkin matters, since the golem will always face that direction when it's at rest. Even cooler, the block it's standing on when spawned defines its pathfinding preference. For example, if you place it on cobblestone and lay out a path of cobblestone blocks nearby, it will actively patrol along those blocks before returning home at night. If you want it to stay permanently in place, just use honeycomb on it to seal it like a wax statue. But compared to an item frame, the Tuff Golem actually holds the items you give it in multiple unique stances, which you can shuffle between by right-clicking it. You can even equip it with a helmet or a pumpkin, and you can even sit on it yourself like a moving throne. And if it wasn't enough, you can shift right click it with an echo shard and it will begin to turn toward nearby players. The Tuff Golem may have started as a boring statue, but with these changes, it becomes a more customizable and interactive mob, which can certainly bring your builds to life. Following with the first losing mob of the 2023 vote, and arguably one of the most painful losses, the Crab. Originally, the crab was going to spawn in mangrove swamps and drop its claw, which would allow players to place blocks farther away by extending their reach. But how it would actually work was never explained. Well, I'm here to fix that. And not just for builders, for everyone. Instead of being dropped when you kill the crab claw is now obtained like turtle scutes. When a baby crab grows up, it naturally sheds its claw, which you can then collect. From there, you've got two options. The first option is the Potion of Reach. Use the crab claw to brew a Potion of Reach, which upon consumption will temporarily increase your block placement and interaction range. The second option is the Crab Pincher. Collect 8 crab claws and you can craft the Crab Pincher, which would essentially act as a multi-tool and a reach extender at the same time. The Crab Pincher automatically inherits the best properties of the tools in your inventory. If you have a diamond axe, pickaxe, and shovel in your hotbar, the Crab Pincher functions as all three without needing to switch. You can essentially mine any block with just the pincher as long as you have the tools in your inventory, and on top of that, it gives you extended reach for placing and breaking blocks. It can also extend your reach if you put blocks in your offhand and the pincher in your main hand. Now you can break, place, and switch between tools seamlessly, all from a single item. This tool would not only be a great addition for builders who constantly have to change between tools, but also anyone else who would like the convenience of not having to change their tools constantly and would rather have all the functionality in just one single tool. It's sort of like a bundle just for tools. To balance things out, the durability of your actual tools would decrease twice as fast while using the pincher, but the convenience it provides is simply unmatched. Finishing off with the final mob vote loser of 2023, the penguin. Originally, the penguin was meant to spawn in the Stony Shore biome and could help your boat swim faster. A neat concept, but perhaps not enough to win the vote. But I think the penguin can be far more than just a speed boost for your boat. Let's make the penguin not just fill in the void of ambience, but also make it an interactive and fun mob. In cold biomes, penguins will swim alongside boats and grant a speed bonus. But the speed bonus is stackable. The more penguins, the faster your boat will get, making travel through ocean far more enjoyable. But that's just the beginning. Penguins are also opportunistic. If you're fishing nearby, they will try to steal the fish just before you reel it in, cancelling the catch. However, if you feed the penguin a fish, it becomes helpful, swimming off and catching fish on your behalf. For a limited time, it acts as a fishing companion, diving in and occasionally returning with loot. During snowy weather or when a predator is near, penguins will begin to huddle together tightly to protect each other. This would certainly be a charming little behavior that also makes them feel more alive. If they have eggs nearby, they will actively defend them, even from players. Step too close and you'll find yourself being squawked at and shoved around and pushed. And of course, when they're not boosting boats or stealing fish, penguins can be found sliding around on ice, bumping into one another playfully. Their presence makes the biome they inhabit feel more alive and lived in. A mob that's not only cute but deeply connected to its environment, both visually and mechanically. And that's all of my suggestions on how to potentially make the losers of the mob votes integrated into the game, and given a more exciting purpose. The addition of the Copper Golem certainly brought a lot of hope for the other mob vote losers to be added into the game, and while most of them are probably never going to be added into the game, it's a nice reminder of what we could potentially get from these mobs, if they were added much like the Copper Golem was. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, subscribing, or sharing it with a friend. It really helps the channel out. And if you haven't already, check out my previous videos where I rework a bunch of other Minecraft features and give them a brand new purpose. I now have channel memberships, so you can support the channel if you wish to do so. And if you subscribe to the smiley tier, you can have your skin featured in the video. Hope to see you in the next video. Bye!